Hello, my name's Ala, and I was born in Poland in a Catholic family, and my upbringing was traditional, you would say, for Eastern European standards. And my life before becoming a Muslim, it was just like a regular person's life, I would say, in Europe. There was nothing like, extraordinary about it. I would just try to do my best, and I've been studying arts in the university and having different jobs. But I didn't have like one profession. Most of my time, I was just a student of my like adult kind of. My family was, as I said, it was traditional. So they were Catholic. So as a child and then a teenager growing up, I always had like conscience of God, but I never really found my place in the Catholic Church or the Christian Church, or even like I've been like studying about Judaism, because as a person from Poland, our history is very much connected to the Jewish people, and I didn't just find a like place in it for me. I didn't feel it. There wasn't like anything that would really make me like feel inside that this is the right path to choose and follow. So I think like the first ever encounter with Islam, if I remember correctly, it was as a tourist in North Africa. I went to Tunisia with my parents for the holidays, and that was basically the first time I heard adhan or went to the mosque or just basically had like whatever Muslim influence around me, because before that in my city at least there wasn't much of immigrants or like students. I was even too young to know these things. It was probably I was 13 at the time, and I would call that as a first encounter. I always feel like when I think about the breaking point leading me to starting investigating Islam, it wasn't really investigating it didn't start when I started investigating Islam. It started as my journey to recreate my connection with God, and I'm getting emotional, and I feel like that was the main thing, and then I felt after that really Islam came so naturally, because after I really worked on the bond with God and on creating the bond, or like recreating the bond that's been lost and neglected by me, I felt like that was the breaking point itself. Was probably when I was at my lowest, and I realized basically to survive, I need to give up my needs to like keeping the control of things. And I think that was the moment when the connection started growing, and probably within a year of that moment or less, I become a Muslim. But the initial point was just asking God for help and for guidance. And I feel like Islam was it was already there, but I didn't know it's Islam. The aspect of Islam that initially affected me the most was meeting people. I remember some of the people like really, you would say, rural areas. They would have like just peace and like the like an inner light. And now I know the name for it is Nur. But at the time I had no idea what is this, and like how is this happening? The people just have something in their faces and eyes that's different to what I saw in my environment. And so this thing led me to like investigating more in Islam. But when it comes to like things about Islam itself, that really, I wouldn't say caught my attention, but like kind of maybe made me kept going as researching and finding out more. It was the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it was very unique to me. And I remember I started reading parts of Quran, but it's very difficult. As I mean, it's vast. Okay, you cannot really say like, you know, you even read it once or 10 times and you understand. Okay, but I felt like the Sunnah was something more approachable. Okay, and easier like to grasp and maybe try to like implement. You know, so that's what caught my attention first. I remember. So my database, I would say, for the research was internet, of course, obviously, with different platforms and YouTube and Instagram, even with some of the, I would say, religious influences or scholars. And then obviously in these times they run profiles trying to reach as many people as possible. And I was one of those people. And the Quran itself, because I feel like I quite quickly realized the Muslim world is just huge, and sometimes it would be like you know, everyone's trying to do their best, of course, but in their own way. And I felt like following someone like directly might not really lead me somewhere I would feel satisfaction or like accomplishment. So I felt, I knew like from the beginning, and I was always kind of like the kind of person that would really dig deep. Sometimes it's a flaw. In this case, it was like a good thing to, and it still is, I believe, to really find out information from all the sides, so you can really, like, you know, find the balance that's right, and the balance that is right for you at the moment which you are in, which is really, really important thing, especially when you're young or like a very fresh convert to Islam. Okay, so like at the core, I'm a bit of like a maybe more loner. So I wasn't really seeking to have like a immediately group of people around me to show me, you know, what's going on and everything. But I think also it's for the best. Alhamdulillah, there is no community in my city. There is no mosque as well. And so everything I want to find out, I had to really find out by myself. And I look at it as really a blessing, because I know also lots of sisters I know that they've been struggling with really being like influenced by a certain maybe ethnicity or culture mixed with Islam, because that comes naturally. You cannot really 100%, you know, separate it in all cases. So I feel like it was a good thing, alhamdulillah. But if I really needed like to reach out to see, it's very helpful as well to see people like me. You know, I would travel to Berlin, where the community is really big, and there's many beautiful mosques. and I would hang around there, like, spend some time. And but I didn't have like a one influential person. I remember there was one sister I met on Instagram. She was running a profile for the rivers, so she would put like different reminders and quotes and everything. I would like have a bit of a chat with her, but not to the point I would like really rely on somebody to guide me through or something, except for God. But as a person, I didn't really have like a spiritual guide in my journey at first, and then of course I started meeting and talking to different people that I would think, oh, like this is nice, or this thing I don't really like, and why is it like this, and why is it like that, and which one is correct. And but I was doing of course I would consult, okay, and I remember I would even like write emails to like one of the muftis and look for the information, but not grasp to a person to shower me with the information, because I don't believe there is. We are not perfect, and I doubt there would be one person that would be really perfect to explain you all the parts that you find confusing, because it's confusing for all of us. But of course the scholars, then they would answer you. But also there's different schools of thoughts, and I was also confused with that, how like this people think like this and those think like this, and in the end both of the opinions are fine. And yeah, it was a lot of work. Yeah, and it still is sometimes. Yeah. There is no simple answer to this question, because I feel like there is few answers actually, and all of them are correct. Because if you think about me as a person of white European background and European heritage, even though it's Eastern European, in my opinion, some people also don't agree. But if you mean like missing parties or getting dressed in a different way, I don't know, hanging out with the opposite sex friends. I didn't feel like the difference was huge for me. I wasn't drinking alcohol or really going out for partying for a while. Before, I'm not saying I never did that, but for a while before I become Muslim and before I learned about Islam, and this is the right thing to do in Islam, I have basically stopped doing that for a while. So in this case, it wasn't like really a dramatic change. In terms of maintaining my relationships as friends and family, and it was a big difference. The difference was huge, to the point I felt like it's really getting bad. But alhamdulillah, it ended up quite well. And basically, it's like in anything with life. I mean, you don't have to become a Muslim to leave some of your friends behind, or some of the situations that are not suiting you. I mean, it's healthy. So I see it in this way. My idea about Muslims and Islam wasn't the best, obviously, as you can imagine. But at the same time, I can't really remember being like extremely against, or like, having like this like extremist ideas against Islam or refugees, or however, I didn't really feel like I would say as a more conscious person, however that sounds, I wasn't really enthusiastic about the idea of being a religious person. Okay, so I felt like it's a bit maybe outdated, maybe a bit weird, but at the same time I was trying to have all the respect different types of people, but I could never really see myself as one of them. Okay, so I felt like it's really, I don't need this in my life. Like, why do I need the rules, and why do I need to be scared? Or especially there's like a very, in Christianity, there's like a big pressure put on the feeling of being guilty. As you're born with sin, since the you're a baby, and then basically you just it was too much of like a, I don't know, I felt like it's unnecessary struggle in life, but I never like wanted to harm somebody or like maybe make them feel like they are less because of what they believe in, but deep inside I feel like I had like this feeling of being better than them. I think I can really admit that this was happening, and I felt like maybe I know more, or maybe I read more books, or I had better like influence around me to, even though my family wasn't agreeing with that, but that's how I felt like inside. I felt really, I felt very disappointed deep inside with God and institutionalized religion. And my family was scared, okay? But they were scared as in a caring way for me. And sometimes their care would take forms of some hurtful words or actions. And I felt confused at the time with what with what I am doing actually with my life, and the changes I'm like, you can see this like clouds coming from the horizon, and like it's gonna happen, like it's just, and it was difficult for me, and it was difficult for my family, I'm sure. And they weren't happy at all at first. And they were like, but I think like also they felt like it's one of these like eccentric ideas, that came to my head. And especially the knowledge, I'm sure the knowledge they had about Islam was very limited as well. And they were really deeply shocked when they learned that like the prophets we have the same. And most of the stories from Bible and from the Quran are basically very similar. I don't want to say the same, but they are, the core of the religion is the same. And I feel like when they started to understand that, they become like more calm. Although I feel like they don't really, right now they don't really mind Islam. The biggest problem is the hijab. They hate it to this day, and like it's really a struggle to this day. But I remember when it wasn't always like this. Like it would just be conversations and like explaining to each other. Of course, there was like really intense moments. I remember when my mom, she saw me first time praying. I remember it was Maghrib in my parents' house. She like, like in the Arab families, she like just took her sandals off and tried to beat me up. And she just didn't know what's going on. She was very confused. She took the cross, because like Christians, they put crosses on the walls above the doors, in my culture, at least. And they put these crosses, and she like took this cross and she started praying. She just didn't know what to do with me. And is this a joke, or am I trying to be like cruel or them, or maybe, what's going on? So basically that was like ups and downs. And I feel like to this day, it's still ups and downs. I feel like it was easier on my father than on my mother, because my dad, he's as a person who travels a lot, he quickly understood basically it's the same. And I feel like he was even happy that after all the past I had and the things I've been doing, he was relieved I reconnected with God. And I feel like there is like this inside him there's like this sense of even pride to like, tend to God with everything you have, like, the choices you can make around you, and you decide to do something like this. It made him happy, and it makes him happy to this day. But with my mom, it's more difficult. It's more complicated. I feel like with my mom, we are more like similar in characters. We're very stubborn, and we really deeply believe in what we believe in. So there is a bit of tension, but there is also lots of love, and I feel like this is just in every relationship with parents. But with my like grannies, for example, which I'm very close to my family, because the family is very important in Polish culture. It's like we're very close and the ties are really strong. So one of my grannies, she's very happy. She's watching all the Turkish drama, and she's seen hijabs before, and like she knows the Turkish names, and like she's very passionate about all the stories going on there. So she was like, okay, this is pretty, like this color looks nice on you, maybe you could like maybe try to tie it different. And she even went shopping with me once. She paid for my hijabs in the second-hand store. She was very happy to do that. So it's very lovely. And my other granny, she's much more conservative. She's my mom's mother, and she wouldn't say really anything, but you can tell there is like a suspicion in the looks. But anyway, I'm really happy, and I'm really grateful to God that it turned the way it turned, because I felt like at some point it's really going down. The bond is breaking because of my becoming a Muslim. And then it all started to work after I got married. My family like really loved my husband, alhamdulillah, and we become closer than ever, subhanallah. Never I have been this close and intimate with my parents and family, even though we don't agree on many things. And with my friends, some of my friends, they just wouldn't say a word. Like they would see me for the first time in hijab, and they wouldn't ask questions. Or maybe later they would start to throw this question, like small here, or like maybe how you do this, why you do that, and But they would never really no, none of these things. And the other part of friends, which is like less close friends, they would just see me in the hijab. They would spend time with me, like we had a meeting for the tea or lunch or something. And after that, they would just stop talking to me. Just like we never met. So I didn't feel like it took like a toll on me. It's a part of life. Things just go by, and I'm sure there's new people coming, and you travel, and I didn't feel like it really hurt me too much. One thing for sure is do not expect too much from yourself. Give yourself time to absorb and apply the aspects of religion that you think are important to you and that you found out about. And take it easy on yourself. There's a very common thing. It's like imposter syndrome with the converts. You just you change your identity, and you don't always get all the support from around you, or sometimes the support comes to you like too much, and you feel overwhelmed. So I would say the main thing is just work on your relationship with God, and of course, you have to learn new things and try to learn more and find out more. But there is also living. And I remember I had time at first when I became a Muslim. I would learn so much. Every day, just I come from work or I come from school and I spend hours doing nothing, just listening to lectures and reading and praying. And it felt really amazing. But I had time for this and I had means to do that. But then I remember after I got married and I started traveling, and there's this new person in your life that you have to live with, you know, and you have to learn certain things and adjust your time in different ways. And I mean, you know, just a change in life, a major change in your life. And then there is not so much time, maybe, as you were used to, or I was used to, at least, to study. And then I feel like a lot of challenges come in my life. I don't mean with the marriage specifically, but I mean with changing circumstances. Okay, and then I felt like it's really like I panicked. You know, I felt like, what am I doing, and is it really right? And it's like I feel like I'm applying the things I know, and I'm trying to apply them as good as I can in terms of my manners and knowledge and you just put the elements of what you have learned and of who you have become in your life. And it has to become like a solid piece. So for you to to just carry on with God through your life, and this is the main thing that for me, not to lose this the grip. Because it's very easy to focus on different things, but then lose the big picture. And it's very tricky, and it's also very difficult. But that's the main focus. I feel like that's the main focus, especially for the rivers. Not to look around too much. Care about people and their opinions, not to hurt anybody, but just go steady and slow with the changes and progress. I feel like Islam, it's just brought the whole new quality of life for me, and at some point of my life, I felt like I'm falling down with everything, and not only this, I'm trying to hold on to specific things, and I drag these things or the people with me, and it's very terrible to feel guilty of such a thing. But I couldn't know any better. I didn't know what to do, and then when I become a Muslim, I feel like not just the quality of my life improved. I feel like the quality of my whole family, of all our lives improved. And it's very amazing feeling. I mean, I feel like I'm being truthful to myself, and it's a very amazing sensation you get, especially after feeling remorse for making mistakes. And I'm not saying now with Islam I will not make mistakes, but I hope they won't be as severe. Okay, and it's severe in terms of influencing me or other people around me in a bad way. I feel like Islam is teaching you to focus on all the small details, And it's the small details that build the whole. And I remember it was very like unbelievable for me. How is it possible that the Quran and the Prophet ﷺ and the stories of the Sahaba and everything is just every type of person and every type of difficulty you might have and every big or small task, drinking water from the glass, okay? Everything is you have directions shown. What's and what should be the basically remembrance of God should be the main purpose. Since the moment you open your eyes to the moment you just lay down and put your head back on the pillow, and everything in between, including these moments as well, is just, there is like a way for it, the way you should be striving for. And I find it's just very relieving, And also the beauty of Islam for me is there is no, except for the major principles, there is place for thought, and there is place for consideration of the situation and the circumstances. So different advice applies to different type of person, to different type of situation, to different type of place you might go to. And yeah, Islam is beautiful. It's really, it's the best thing that happened to me. I remember it was at night. I was in my bed, just reading on my phone things about Islam as I would see them. Just, what are you reading? I'm reading the things about Islam. I'm trying to find out some. Then I put down my phone, and I remember my daughter, she was sleeping next to me. And I thought, okay, tomorrow maybe, I'll try to think about this and maybe do better with that and all. And maybe one day I could really become a Muslim. But then I felt really this feeling that many people describing, this idea coming to your head, what if, what if that's, you don't wake up in the morning. And life is very fragile, and the things you have today are very fragile as well. And so I had this feeling that I cannot really, because I thought, okay, I'm gonna wake up tomorrow if I do, and then just continue to do what I was doing. And then what if I felt like I'm lying to myself, okay, that I will maybe learn more and maybe do this and do that and maybe go there and meet someone and then I will become a Muslim. But I feel already what I'm reading about, I'm reading it because it's the truth. So so I felt how long can I really, distance myself. So I thought, how long can I really distance myself from the feeling I have inside me that that's it, and this is the right way to follow. This is what your life should be about, long time ago probably. And so what am I gonna I was saying to myself what are you gonna come up with tomorrow? You're gonna have this idea okay, I've been reading this, but I'm not ready. I don't think I'm ready for that. And then, but then what? What is the things to do? What's the choices to make, and how to basically? I felt there is nothing beyond this. This decision is the door you have to cross, because there is just that's the entrance or exit or whatever. You just you cannot stay in the same place as you are. So so if the decision I make is not making a decision, it's still a decision, right? And I felt like, okay, that's it. I said, I Googled how to read the Shahada, and I said it myself. And and then I still wasn't sure, I read, probably after taking few days or maybe next day, I don't really remember exactly. But then I read, after taking Shahada, you have to go and do the ghusl, okay? So, okay, so this is probably not valid. Okay, I need to do this again. So I read it again, I went to take the shower. and I think I repeated that a few times because I still wasn't sure, really, that's it? My sins are forgiven and I can move on and now I'm a Muslim. Do I tell people I'm a Muslim, right? Or do I not? When do I tell, And what do I do? And so I'm sure I took my Shahada a few times. But the first time I remember was the one at night. And for me, this is the point where I thought, okay, I cannot really go on without this in my life. It's not life, okay, for me. Yeah.